Keean Bexte here with the Rebel Media, just outside of Tuskegee, Alabama. Tuskegee, Alabama is a small town of about 8,000 folks. It's very Christian, and right west of there, down the interstate and down this dirt road that I'm standing on, and right behind me is a compound that saw some action recently. Over the weekend, FBI determined after executing a search warrant that this place is indeed owned by one Siraj Wahhaj, an individual who's the son of a notorious Islamic religious leader, someone who's been called an unindicted co-conspirator of the World Trade Center bombings a couple decades ago. Siraj Wahhaj Jr., they're both named the same thing. Siraj Wahhaj Jr. also owned a compound similar to this in New Mexico, one that had housed 11 malnourished children that were being trained to kill FBI agents and shoot up schools. That's what they were doing. And here right behind me, you can see the compound is very similar. Drone footage that we've acquired shows that there is indeed an obstacle course back in these bushes, something that they were using in New Mexico to train the kids to shoot up schools. There's also a few shacks and a broken down bus. Not sure what they would have been used for, but we wanted to show up here because we knew what happened in New Mexico. We knew right after the story broke, local authorities bulldozed the facility. They bulldozed it, perhaps destroying evidence, and the mainstream media certainly was not interested in covering it. The story for them was that there was 11 malnourished children, not that there were 11 children being trained to shoot up schools and to kill FBI agents. But we know how the mainstream media acts, like CNN, when it comes to Islamic terror. We really do. They want to brush it under the rug. They want to act like it didn't happen, and they want to deflect with stories that aren't nearly as important as what brought me out here today. 11 kids were being trained to kill FBI agents. There was a lot of kids in this compound, and they were going back and forth between here and New Mexico. No kids that you heard of at all, anything like that?
I haven't.
Peculiar?
No, I have not heard of any kids, nor have I seen any kids.
From my understanding, the community is largely Christian, and the three women that were with these two men, they were dressed in niqabs and burqas, so they would have probably stuck out like a sore thumb. Do you see many people walking around with burqas at all?
No.
No. So if you did, you'd probably have seen them.
If we were walking around in this Pacific area, I would see them. I would look at them probably because it would kind of be. We don't see them around here in this particular area. No.
So would you say that they could have been in there for a couple of years without anyone even knowing?
Possibility for me anyway, because I don't go up there. I go out and go to work.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Go to church on Sunday. I'm a mostly yard person. I stay around the house when I'm not working or going to church.
Over the weekend, you said you heard helicopters. Can you explain where they were going, what time?
Well, I heard airplanes and saw some airplanes flying, and they were flying in the vicinity of the 85, Interstate 85, right that way.
Mm-hmm. And you heard in the news, the local news, about what happened, about the terrorist camp? Right. You said that was in the Tuskegee paper? It
was in Tuskegee paper. One of the terrorist pictures was in the paper. And they also had it on television about the camp being found here. They did a coverage of it.
Is the community upset, do you think, or?
Well, I know some people are, because they didn't have no idea that was going on here, so they're a little upset.
I've spoken with lots of folks in Tuskegee, everyone that you'd expect people would have needed to talk to get by in life. I've talked to gas station attendants. I went to the post office. I've shown them all pictures of Siraj Wahhaj and his family, and none of them have seen anything. And I have to note, it is a very Christian town. Everyone here goes to church on Sunday, and seeing someone like Siraj Wahhaj, as well as his wives or wife, or I'm not sure what the situation is there, but there were three women who were walking around in burqas when they were shown up in court. If they saw anything like that, certainly would have stuck out in their mind. But no one at a gas station, nobody at the post office, nobody has seen anything, which is really, really peculiar. Nobody in the mainstream media is really covering this. To do my background research before coming out here, the Daily Caller was really the only news organization that had any sort of comprehensive story on Siraj Wahhaj. What's reported is that Siraj drove with his family from here to New Mexico to go camping, and on the way they got into a car accident where police said that they saw no camping equipment of any sort. They just saw a bunch of firearms. That's a little bit suspicious. And now they have been charged and are in court. The 5 have been indicted on charges relating to terrorism, firearm misuse, as well as child abuse. Interestingly enough, the father, the Siraj Wahhaj Sr., is coming to Canada to speak at an Islamic Relief Foundation event. It's not yet clear if Canada Border Services are going to let him cross the border. We'll keep you apprised if they do. I'd be surprised if they did, given his history, but you never know with Canada's government. Now, it doesn't get much more suspicious than this story. It's not just the fact that the grandfather, the patriarch of this family, who's a notorious Islamic religious leader, who's an unindicted co-conspirator of the World Trade Center bombings a few decades ago. It's not the fact that there were 11 children being shot, being trained to shoot up FBI agents in schools. It's the fact that the prosecution has been bungled on these folks at almost every turn. It's not just the fact that the New Mexico compound was bulldozed, perhaps destroying evidence. It's also the fact that 3 out of the 5 individuals were released from custody and charges were dropped by New Mexico Judge Emilio Chavez after the prosecution was unable to hold a preliminary hearing to provide all the evidence. Now, that bulldozing is what caused me to come out here. I wanted to document everything that I could in case local authorities or whatever the case may be destroys the evidence that's behind me. We have footage all over the property and we have it saved, and you can't bulldoze it. But that's why we wanted to come out here, because the mainstream media is not covering it, because we aren't certain that authorities aren't going to bulldoze this site. If you enjoyed this coverage and want to see more of it, please go to www.rebelinvestigates.com. There you can support my coverage. You can pitch in a few bucks to help cover the cost of my flight from Calgary to Atlanta, where I then drove to rural Alabama and got a hotel overnight while I interviewed local folks so that I can make sure to get this story to you. For the Rebel.media, I'm Keean Bexte. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed our coverage. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter directly at TheRealKeean. If you want to support our coverage, please go to www.rebelinvestigates.com and pitch in a few bucks to help make sure I can keep up with this kind of coverage, stay on the road, and bring stories to you that matter that the mainstream media just isn't covering.